a lot of people have emerged over the past several years, especially since the 2017 disclosure, which can have a downside too, because people start running to a space and you get a lot of disinformation in there as well. You know, people who may want to just monetize it, or people who could be there to literally try to muddy the waters, if you know what I mean. We'll talk about that today. But you mentioned the first dinner where Stanton Friedman just rolls in. Like, did you have any appreciation of that?
No appreciation. It's just another random guy coming to dinner who's
damn it, Dad.
Yeah, exactly. So that was fun. I remember sitting at the dinner table and I heard about some of the first abduction cases of Brian Scott, which is
Brian Scott.
Yeah, it's like one of the early ones. Yeah, I don't even remember. I mean, you can look it up on the web. Maybe there's something on the web, but
yeah, I don't know that one.
Yeah,
Brian Scott.
Yeah, I don't remember. I just remember the name.
Stanton was talking about
Stanton and my father, but they interviewed him. He was he had an encounter or multiple encounters and abductions, and they did regression hypnosis analysis. And that was the first time I got exposed to that whole methodology of analysis.
That's what John Mack would do, right?
Yeah, John Mack or the other, or Jacobs, for example. David Jacobs wrote his book there. But John Mack was a seminal researcher from Harvard. He wrote this huge book called Abduction, which is in UFOdex, by the way.
Yeah. Your site. Yeah.
Yeah. UFOdex.com. Sure. Yeah. So
I just had Danny Sheehan in here, actually, who was his lawyer.
Oh yeah.
For the last 10 years.
Yeah, Danny Sheehan came to the crash retrieval conferences and gave a talk.
That's awesome.
When he was young.
But he's still young. That guy's insane. He's a fire hose, man.
Yeah, I know. He is a fire hose. The challenge is to keep him on point and quiet.
Well, you know what? I just caught the back end of that. But he literally, he has a photographic memory, and you can just see him churning and making the timeline in his head while he's talking, and he'll just rip through the whole thing, and you'll listen to it back later and you'll be like, oh, that made sense. When you're listening to it, you're just like, oh my God, there's so many details there. Like, what are we even talking about here? And the guy, he's like almost 80 years old, but whatever that like energy gene is, he's got it.
Right.
I've never seen anything like it. But he would speak at your conferences.
Yeah. He spoke there. I mean, Linda Moulton Howe spoke. There was a few, Nick Redfern and his work. Timothy Good once came. There's a long list. And you can get the conference proceedings on Amazon. UFO crash retrieval conference proceedings.
Oh, there's proceedings.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I did it right. I mean,
do you guys wear like some cloaks and daggers in there?
Well, I mean, we had every speaker had to write a paper or provide their PowerPoint slides.
That's cool.
So it was just like the MUFON conference in essence, in that everybody had to submit a paper, and that always helped the quality and the credibility and the scientific focus.
Yeah, sure.
Of the presentations.
What do you think, we just mentioned the disclosure in 2017 and obviously everything that's happened since, but what do you make of the government having people who, I had Lou Elizondo in here, he's one of them, the guys like Christopher Mellon, you can look at the science side, like Hal Puthoff, even Jacques Vallée, like these guys who have been in the Pentagon, allegedly working with all this stuff. What do you make of like the government making an effort to have their people come out and say it's real?
Yeah, I think knowing Hal Puthoff and knowing Jacques Vallée and knowing many of these people, I think that they were never really cleared for the truth. I mean, the deep truth. I mean, anti-gravity is the ultimate secret. And they have always been, or gravity control has been the key thing they're trying to control and protect. And so I think that they had some exposure to craft and that sort of thing, but I don't think they ever got read into the deepest compartmentalized secrets. I mean, there's sort of two compartments. There's the tech and the bodies. So they're naturally bifurcated since Roswell, when they had a bunch of bodies, or maybe earlier in Cape Girardeau in 41. Or maybe, Grush's comment on 33.
Magenta.
Yeah. So I think that they've been exposed to a lot, and they have a lot of knowledge and secrets that the government probably told them. But I don't think there's layers upon layers upon layers, and that's the way you protect the ultimate secret of the most disruptive thing is gravity control.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's the holy grail that would rewire the world. It would solve a bunch of problems, both environmentally as well as energy.
Can you elaborate on that? Would you mind?
Sure. Well, there's sort of two ways to, move the planet from what I call, a bunch of warring factions and political discord into you can now join the cosmic kindergarten of the galaxy. and the only way to do that is to, get rid of the nukes, fix your environment, feed everybody, educate everybody. I mean, these are grand socialistic ideas, but I think that's, you have to do that. And the only way to do that is to solve the energy problem. And so you can have two choices. You have either fusion, antineutronic fusion, basically radiation-free neutrons, or radiation-free fusion energy. My day job is a CEO of electric fusion, so we're working on a roller bag.
Casual day job.
Yeah. Working on fusion in a roller bag that's portable, or you do gravity control. So you either lower the cost of electricity by a factor of 10 to 100. You can do that with gravity control. If you have 1% less gravity here, you have a flywheel spinning and the flywheel just keeps going.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, 1% gravity from the desk to space. And so that's a powerful thing that can be harnessed as well. So with free electricity, you can decarbonize the planet. You can suck, they have decarbonization technologies right now that allow you to suck carbon dioxide out of the air, but it uses tons of electricity, and that costs money. And that's the challenge, is that you can't scale it up because electricity costs a lot of money.
Right.
And you burn hydrocarbons. And so you want to get rid of the hydrocarbons. And there's only two ways to do it that I'm aware of. I mean, you could do some sort of tapping of the 0-point energy and make some box that does some sort of Kashmir cavity, some sort of approach to make electricity too. So those are the two or three ways that are possible to create super low cost, free electricity, which would enable, along with Starlink, and you grow food anywhere, suck water out of the air anywhere on the planet, turn the desert into green, et cetera. It takes time. I mean, it's take 10, 20, 30 years a generation, but this is the process that I think we're on.
Well, you mentioned that maybe it would include like getting rid of nukes and stuff like that.
That's tough.
I was going to say, do you think we can live in a world where that's the case? Because even if we figure some of these things out, there's still going to be first, second, and third world countries. There's still going to be rivalries. There's still going to be people fighting over bull like race or whatever, they choose today. Like, humans are inherently flawed. We are a flawed species in that way. And I feel like when we start getting to and Danny Sheehan talks about the same thing, but it's an amazing goal of let's have no nukes. Let's all get along. Let's suck energy out of the air. To me, that says all right, yeah, maybe 12,000 years from now. Am I too cynical to believe that?
No, I mean, that's a normal reaction. I'll give you an example. One of the guys who was on my board of directors for Frontline Aerospace was Lieutenant General Canan. And so, here's a career Air Force Academy lieutenant general who had a huge career. And I asked him one time, Tim, what causes wars? And he, after going through the Army War College and all this experience, he says it's a lack of resources. It's fundamentally a lack of resources, be it water, fuel, education, power, There's a lot of things, but fundamentally it turns out to be a lack of resources.
I think he's right.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so if you start to chip away at that problem, you can change the dynamic. So they get to the point where, well, we don't need nukes anymore. We're satisfied. We don't have to have a contentious society. The other thing is miscommunication. So that's one of the big challenges with the advent of AI and more computer tech. We're going to get to the point where you can drop into the middle of Africa and have a little, cell phone on your hip or something that dynamically translates everything from Swahili into English or any language, any other language, and all linked to Starlink or something like that, or some other communication technology. And it's the miscommunication which causes wars and stress.
Yes.
And so if you clean that up, you sort of decrease the anxiety of people against people. And then maybe the final thing, which is really sort of out there, which I think one of the alien abduction experiences highlighted, was that, the problem with planet Earth is that the male-female ratio is wrong. Yeah, I said I had the same reaction, the sort of, weird. Now what do you mean there? And the answer is that you really need to have like 5 females for every 1 male. Basically, the female compassion and empathy and mindset is something that calms the whole population. Is that what starts wars? It's, the 20 to 30-year-old male density is also highly contributing to this warring faction. China is, God, they got all this unemployment, and they're all in this prime age, and they're all men. I'm just waiting for China to say, well, I think we need more water. Let's go take over a big corner of Russia.
Yeah, I hope you're wrong, but I understand why you think that way.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of the feedback from the ETs of coming from their perspective, anthropological. We've seen this planet a million times before.
From the ETs.
Yeah, the ETs, this is typical Earth planet. You got a 50-50 male-female ratio, but no, if you have a 20% male and it's not about sex or procreation or anything like that. It's just about the calming effect of having less men and their power and their focus. I mean, it's a controversial thing, and I'm probably get junk for it. But
we love a good ratio at the club. That's all I'm saying. I see 5 dudes walking in 1 chick. It's like, get the fuck out of here. I see 5 chicks and 1 dude. You're like, let's go.
So anyway, I thought that'd be a little weird, but controversial. But I think it's relevant.
It's a good start to our conversation because we got a lot of controversial stuff today.
Yeah.
But you open your book as far as like when you get to the retrievals with an ancient story, and it's the only one of its kind in there, and it's about Turkey, and it's about at Mount Ararat, and specifically, you're getting into the question of whether or not you're looking at the remnants of Noah's Ark, and somehow it's tied to UFOs. Can you please explain this?
Sure. Yeah. Well, Nick Redfern did some original work on this, but the CIA had paid a lot of attention to Mount Ararat with 1957 overflights of U-2, and then 74 and 78, and then maybe a special operations team dropped in and pulled
75.
Pulled out an alleged rusty old saucer. So
that's our boy Dale Comstock down there, baby. Delta Force.
Delta Force. Yeah. And so but what's fascinating about that story is that multiple congressmen pushed the CIA and the intelligence community to say, give me the photographs. I mean, what's the big deal? Why can't I have a 1957 YouTube overflight? Give me the 9-inch negative of Mount Ararat. And to this day, they won't declassify it and give it to you. And several other congressmen asked the same thing. And so I find it an interesting sort of early tickler that they're hiding something. There's something important, something classified about something so old, about an old piece of dirt in the middle of Turkey. And from there, I go from 3000 BC to 1897 in Aurora, Texas. Yeah.
But that's great. Like they're trying to date Noah's Ark, which is this not just ancient biblical story, it's this ancient story that exists on different planes across pretty much like every ancient text.
Right. Yeah.
And they're trying, and there's a question there that like, oh, is there something extraterrestrial about it? Like, was it the aliens that said Earth is going to flood? Yeah. And we're going to send you a UFO hovercraft,
yeah, I mean,
Noah.
It's speculation, but, did the aliens cause the flood? Because this is the ancient alien theory, right? Is that Nephilim or the giants were getting too rambunctious with the humans, and they needed to wipe it off and start over, so they created the flood. But I'm just speculating what I heard, but I don't have any evidence for that.
But you mentioned the Aurora one, which is where you start getting into, like, your timeline essentially goes from 1897 till almost present day.
Right, 2008. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the 1897 case was started by the late Jim Marrs, who he wrote the book Crossfire about the Kennedy assassination, did a lot of research. He was a Dallas-Fort Worth reporter, investigative reporter, and he did a lot of the work on the Aurora, Texas crash case. But in short, the rancher, I think, saw a UFO. It crashed into his windmill. There's a bunch of parts. They gave him a proper burial in the local cemetery.
They gave what was in the...
Yeah, they found a little body, and they gave it a proper burial in the local cemetery.
Who buried him?
The local ranchers in 1897, or the farmer. I can't remember his name. And there's even a plaque erected in Aurora, Texas, as a state monument there. So that was an interesting case. There was, apparently some radiation.
Didn't people's hands get fucked up?
Yeah, their hands got fucked up with a gourd, and there's some pictures in the book where they're all disconfigured. You don't know if it's from radiation poisoning or natural causes or some combination of the two. The other thing is that the headstone had a little sort of triangular picture and a circle on it. Apparently there was two parts of the headstone. One part went away, and then the little alien was buried with parts of the saucer of the event, but that was dug up and disappeared, and the headstone disappeared in in the mid 70s or so forth.
Was he dug up too?
As far as I know, yes. And taken away.
So he's gone.
Yeah. I mean, nobody knows where the exact gravesite is anymore. This is the historical reporting and research of both Jim Marrs, and there was another investigator at the time that did that. And it sort of disappeared in the middle of the night. The typical sort of thing that happens with all crash retrievals.
But for 70 to 80 years, there was allegedly a body of a potential extraterrestrial buried in this Texas backwoods town.
Right, in their cemetery.
Open plain town.
Yeah, exactly.
And no one dug it up for 70, 80 years. That was the part that I was hung up on that one.
Yeah, nobody dug it up as far as I know. I mean, I'm not the primary investigator on the case. Jim Marrs really was. And
who was Jim Marrs again?
Jim Marrs. He was an investigative reporter. He wrote a book called Rule by Secrecy. which is a very interesting classic, as well as he wrote the book JFK Crossfire,
Right.
which was a national bestseller and all about the Kennedy assassination. He also wrote a book about 9/11.
He's hitting all of them.
He's hitting all of them. He was a conspiracy researcher, and he was very well known, very well respected. I mean, since you've never met Jim Marrs, but he was. I remember out in Laughlin, Nevada, at one of the UFO conferences, a bunch of us went off, and he could really smoke a cigar and down his whiskey and tell these incredible stories, and it was impressive. And that was the charm of him, is that he was encyclopedic in his knowledge. The same thing with like Rich Dolan. I mean, he can be very.
He can go.
Yeah, he can go, and that's the beauty of some of the people in ufology, and that's actually what motivated me in part to try to capture that wisdom into an artificial intelligence tool called ufodex.com, is to get all that information, to be able to pull it in and be able to query it in a responsible, interesting manner.
Yeah, we'll put the link to that down in the description for people. But essentially, you have it's AI that goes through all these different primary sources from ufology to answer a specific question you may have and spit it out.
Yeah,
for you.
That's well said. But you can ask, specific and challenging questions. You can do the simple things like, what's the ET agenda, or complicated things like compare and contrast the three major aerospace companies' efforts on reverse engineering. Please cite the names of the people and the programs if you have knowledge, and give me the sources and file names of your references. So you can do lots of different things, or everybody has questions. That's the thing, is everybody they have their own expertise, their own motivation, their own enthusiasm, and they want to get their question answered. I really enjoy presentations where the speaker does half speaking and half questions, because everybody in the audience has their own hot button.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. So back to this case though in Aurora.
Yeah.
So if it gets dug up in the 70s, who's doing that? You think? Do they have any idea down there in Aurora who that might have been?
Well, I'm sure it's the control group, or MJ12. I mean, what's interesting is that in one of the Majestic documents, I think it's in 42 or 47, they mention, let's reinvestigate the Aurora, Texas 1897 case, or let's start there in our complete analysis of ufology. And so maybe it was back in the 40s that they started looking at it. Maybe in the 40s the little alien was dug up, but the headstone was left, where the parts were retrieved. Actually, now that I hear myself talk about it, I think that's what happened, because any responsible intelligence agency or counterintelligence people would have said, "Oh, we got to get that. We can't let that hang around." So
they let it hang out there for a long time.
Yeah, well, if they got it in the 40s, they let it hang out for 50 years. So
yeah,
right. So let's get that. And I'm sure that there's been many other. There's other crashes that happened in Cape Girardeau in 41.
What happened there?
Well, Cape Girardeau is also mentioned in the Majestic documents. So
you know what? Can I cut you off for 1 second, just for people to have context out there?
Sure.
Then we'll come right to Cape Girardeau. Can you just take us through Majestic 12 and what that is and the history of it being uncovered? Because there's questions. There's people that try to say it was debunked. There's people that try to say it was real. But I just want to make sure the listeners have context. They know what we're talking about.
No, that's perfect. So the broad brush is that there's been a series of leaked documents starting in 1984 And the last one is like 1999 or 2000 from 7 different sources spanning some 3,500 pages of leaked documents.
That's a few.
That's a few. Some of it classified top secret magic. Like
that, right
yeah,
there.
like, well,
On
let's
the
see.
top.
Well, like this one. Yeah, this is the first one that that is the Eisenhower briefing document.
I'll hold that up to my
This
camera
is
real
a
quick.
first generation negative from the Eisenhower briefing document, which came in 1984.
What does that mean, first generation negative?
Well, so you have an undeveloped Tri-X film that came in the mail to Jamie Chandray in L.A. I was an L.A. producer. So you go to the darkroom, you develop it,
Oh,
and
old
then
school.
you print it. And so this is a first generation print
Very cool.
from that. And it says top secret magic on the top of it. And
MAJIC.
AIC, yeah, and that stands for Military Assessment of the Joint Intelligence Committee. MAJIC.
They got these big terms back there.
Yeah,
in the
right. Well, there's a
military.
document called that. And then it has a whole list of people down at the front.
The alleged 12.
The alleged original MJ12, and this is the one that somebody sent to the FBI, and the FBI ran around all the 3-letter agencies and said, "Well, did you lose this?" And none of them said, "We lost it."
Oh, yeah, because they were going to tell the truth. Come
Right,
on.
exactly. And
Yeah,
so,
you didn't lose anything? Case closed.
right, so they stamp it bogus, and the FBI says it's bogus, and they have it on the web, they have it in the National Archives as quote bogus because nobody admitted that they lost it.
Can I read this for
Sure,
people right
yeah.
here? This is pretty cool. So it says, as you pointed out, Ryan, it says top secret magic eyes only on the top, like it's stamped on. And then down here it says Operation Majestic 12 is a top secret research and development intelligence operation responsible directly and only to the President of the United States. Allegedly was set up by Truman. Operations of the project are carried out under control of the Majestic 12, Magic 12, group, which was established by special classified executive order of President Truman on 24 September 1947, about a couple years after the nukes here, upon recommendation by Dr. Vannevar Bush and Secretary James Forrestal, who I know James Fox has brought up a bunch. The members of Majestic 12 Group were designated as follows. Admiral Roscoe H. Hillenkoetter.
First director of the CIA.
Okay. Dr. Vannevar Bush, Secretary James Forrestal, General Nathan Twining, General Hoyt Vandenberg, Dr. Detlev Bronk, Dr. Jerome Hunsaker, Mr. Sidney Sowers, Mr. Gordon Gray, Dr. Donald Menzel, General Robert Montague, and Dr. Lloyd Berkner.
Yeah. So
Okay.
some of those people are very interesting in that.
Yeah, can we get context?
Yeah, no, I'll give you a few that I have, a good memory for. Well, Hillenkoetter is very interesting. He was the first director of the CIA, and he's got a lot to do with pushing this along, as well as Vannevar Bush, who was head of OSRD, Office of Scientific Research and Development. He was the key scientific guy. So he's a super scientist and managed all the crash retrieval analysis and reverse engineering in that effort.
Okay.
And then you go to James Forrestal. Forrestal's interesting for. I have Forrestal's FBI file, and I have a bunch of FBI files, but
It's a nice little flex.
so he had sort of a drinking problem, a little bit of psychological stress, but he also was sort of thrown out the window on Bethesda Naval Hospital, defenestrated, so to speak.
He couldn't fly.
You couldn't fly. And now the question is why, and was he going to tell the truth? He was a loose cannon. Was he mentally unstable at the time? But, he was Secretary of the Navy. General Nathan Twining was the key guy in the Roswell investigation, and then and was very much the good soldier and worked hard at the whole Roswell reverse engineering. Hoyt Vandenberg was his boss. Detlef Bronk was a scientist, and I have Bronk's FBI file too. And it's plugged into UFODEX as well.
Nice.
So Bronk was a surgeon, a scientist, somebody capable of doing an autopsy of an alien in one of the Majestic documents.
Capable of doing an autopsy of
He
an
actually
alien.
did an autopsy of an alien. That was in one of the Majestic documents. He worked or was good friends with Leslie Groves, the head of the Manhattan Project.
Matt Damon in the movie.
Yeah, Matt Damon in the movie, right. And then Don Menzel was a famous Harvard astronomer and sort of a debunker of ufology. So he's a disinformation agent in the front-facing world of ufology in that era. And Lloyd Berkner was another one working with Bush and plugged into the White House. I actually got, I think in Berkner's FBI file, I have a document that says he was assigned to the White House for Special Studies Project, quote, M, for Majestic in theory. It doesn't say Majestic, but there was another person that has the same M classification. So these were the original people that were at the highest level. In the Majestic documents, I have this list on majesticdocuments.com of MJ-12 personnel, which is like 100 names of people and their affiliation, their social security numbers, their military ID numbers, their date of birth, date of death. And that's all findable on majesticdocuments.com.
Guys, if you're still watching this video and you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please take 2 seconds and go hit it right now. Thank you. Yeah, let's pull up the Wikipedia, because this is going to be biased against Majestic 12.
Oh, yeah,
obviously.
yeah.
They
I'm
debunk
sure it
like
is.
everything on there.
Yeah.
I just want to see what that says for people. So again, like they're going to debunk everything on there. So take this with a grain of salt, but go down, Alessi. Well, the top I pretty much already read off what that is. Go down to analysis. All right. So class's investigation of the MJ-12 documents found that Robert Cutler was actually out of the country on the date he supposedly wrote the Cutler-Twining memo, and that the Truman signature. Hold on, we lost the screen.
Yeah, Truman signature.
The Truman signature was a pasted-on photocopy of a genuine signature, including accidental scratch marks from a memo that Truman wrote to Vannevar Bush on October 1st, 1947. Can you scroll down, Leslie? Class dismissed theories that the documents were part of a disinformation campaign as ridiculous, saying they contain numerous flaws that could never fool Soviet or Chinese intelligence. Other discrepancies noted by Class included the use of a distinctive date format that matched one used in Moore's personal letters and a conversation reported by Brad Sparks in which Moore confided that he was contemplating creating and releasing some hoax top-secret documents in hopes that such bogus documents would encourage former military and intelligence officials who knew about the government's alleged UFO cover-up to break their oaths of secrecy.
Yeah, no, those are the classic objections. So I'll make a few comments. One is that Truman had an auto pen, which is a pen where you move your hand once and 5 other pens do the same thing at the same time.
What?
Yeah, it's called an auto pen. I have a picture of Truman using it.
Can we get? Is that on the internet?
It's on. I think it's on majesticdocuments.com in photos.
So are they are the pens attached to each other?
mechanically attached.
Oh, okay. All right, that makes sense. I thought you were talking about like magic anti-gravity pens or some shit.
No, they're mechanically attached. And it's something called an auto pen. So they used it for signing invitations and signing documents. And the whole date format thing that Class mentions was widely debunked by Stan Friedman and written up in his book. He actually won a bet against Class for $100 a signature, $100 per date format. And
how many date formats were there?
Well, Class refused to pay past 10, so he paid $1,000 to Stan Friedman. But Friedman found like 20, 25.
Wow.
Yeah, these were all at the Library of Congress Manuscript Division. So that whole message is, and then Class himself is part of the disinformation campaign in ufology. I distinctly remember him coming to a variety of conferences and sitting in the front row and basically throwing barbs and refusing to accept any evidence. He clearly had connections to government agencies, and his focus was on debunking the same way Richard Doty is in his history. And there's several others that are also, Bill Moore is mentioned there in that Wikipedia mention. And Bill Moore in 1989 was in the Las Vegas MUFON conference, and he ran out the back of the stage when the CIA was brought up, and he was questioned about that. And my father knew him. I had met Bill Moore before. So this needs to be done. I mean, to do a good job of writing a book about the cases and aspects of disinformation in ufology. There's many other cases. Richard Doty tried to manipulate Linda Moulton Howe on several classified documents, and then there's
so? What do you mean manipulate?
He showed her a bunch of documents, and then was going to give them to her, and then took them away. The thing to do would be to interview Linda and ask her what's going on. I've heard her talk about it before. I remember the Paul Benowitz story where Richard Doty was also involved, where they basically tried to, and Bill Moore as well, psychologically destroy and manipulate a man to suicide.
I believe Darcy Weir talked about that one, right, Alessi? That was the same one, because he was talking about Richard Doty. Yeah.
And so there are cases like that. I'm not an expert in that. I just hear that through osmosis of being around the field for a long time. Right. So going back to the Majestic documents, there's this Jamie Chandray event. And then the next major event happened in 1994 when a undeveloped film canister of Tri-X film again was mailed to Don Berliner in Washington, D.C., who was an Aviation Week and space reporter. And when developed, it turned into the Special Operations Manual, Extraterrestrial Entities, Technology, Recovery, and Disposal. So this particular manual is the most powerful, the most authentic, the highest confidence of all the Majestic documents. I've done the most analysis along with my father about its authenticity.
And how do you authenticate something like this?
Well, we'll take the first page just for an example. Okay. So you see at the bottom, there's the war seal.
Yes.
You see, so first of all, you find another manual that's in 1954 that has the war seal. And so you can go to the government documents library at Stanford or CU Boulder or Library of Congress, et cetera, and pull up other manuals that use the war seal. Some of the critics have said, well, this is fake because the government issued an order that in 1952, you're not supposed to use the war seal on any documents anymore. You're supposed to use the federal seal or something. And so it's fake because of that. But no, you could find other examples of where they used it. And so that is a hallmark of authenticity, for example. Or the style of the Psalm 101 at the very top, in that style is correct.
Is that copyable, though, 40 years later?
Well, this is leaked in 1994.
Right, and this was April 1954, allegedly.
Right, well, the latest edition of that was 57. But when you say copyable, could you fake it? Yes, the CIA could fake it. The question is why, or the KGB could have faked it, but the question is why? Why leak it? Why?
Yeah,
It's a
why?
disinformation thing. So I think it's not so much a clandestine leak to try to do something to scare the living daylights out of the Chinese or the Russians or the Israelis or whoever about it. It's more that it's authentic. And there's a couple of their points of authenticity before I just moan on, really. The biggest thing is on the inside page, there's a what's called a change control page where it's stamped Kirkland Air Force Base, N.MEX, Unit KB88, Building 21, and there's initials EWL and JRT that for the changing out certain pages in the manual. And so I said, who are these guys, EWL and JRT? And I went to the Albuquerque phone book for 1954 and found the two officers, their names in the phone book, and they both were on Perimeter Road, like 4 houses from each other. One was a lieutenant colonel and one was a captain, I think. And so I literally found the guys that were responsible for marking that. The also thing that we did is we took this manual to
well, they were purported to, right? So, and what did they say? Did you talk to them?
I hired a private investigator to go find them and try to talk to them. One was dead and the other wouldn't talk. But the point is that this came out in 94. This is before computers. The next thing we did was we took it to Robert McCarter, who is a retired government printing office employee, basically wrote the government printing style manual for several years, which is a big, thick book all about the nature of how you write government documents. And my father and I went to his house in Virginia. We had this green card table, and we slid this document across to him and said, well, what do you think of this? And his response was, well, by the title, I would think it's fake. But then he started flipping through all the pages and said, oh, the Z in synchronizer was raised off the line, which is an artifact of a hot lead printing press. So, and he said, Federal was capitalized correctly, and that screwdriver.
Why did you think the first page was fake?
I don't know. I just from the title, it was so weird. He'd never seen extraterrestrial entities, technology. Right. So that was sort of his as a Joe Blow citizen in the mid '90s, saying,
right.
So, and. He went through and concluded that this follows all the various style details associated with hot lead printing presses and classified documents, and some of the what they call entomology, which is the word usage.
Mm-hmm. So that's critical.
It's critical. So, for example, screwdriver is 2 words or 1 word today, and in the document it's 2 words, which is a hallmark of, or first aid was capitalized instead of a single word today. And there's other little subtleties in the language use, as well as all the references in the back were correct. But these are sort of hallmarks of the authenticity. What was so stunning is the content. If you just go to the page that says what to do with the bodies and the parts and where to send it and ship it, that's the, from Wright-Patterson Blue Lab to Area 51 S4. So that's the part that's very interesting.
Whoa. Okay. I see that right here. It says living entity, living non-human organisms in apparent good or reasonable health. Code EBE010, receiving facility, OPNAC BBS-01.
Yeah.
Now, are we able to have, some of these say Area 51 S4, which a lot of people have heard of.
Yeah.
But are we able to know if all these are government or actually run by a contractor?
Well, I think they're all government.
Okay.
I think at this time. I mean, Area 51S4 is
Right,
great.
that one is.
And the Blue Lab at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Oh, yeah, WP.
Yeah, WP. But OPNAC BBS-01 is still somewhat of a mystery. I think BBS-01 stands for Bronx, Detlef Bronx Biological Section.
What makes you say that?
Well, because Bronx was the guy who did the autopsy of the alien, along with Charles Ethan Ray in the Majestic documents.
Oh.
So those are the two guys that did. And then, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but in one of the Majestic documents, the Interplanetary Phenomenon Unit document, it says Detlef Bronk and Charles Ray did the autopsy of an alien. And I said, well, who's this guy, Charles Ethan Ray? And so I hunted around, and he was a surgeon. He also was at the Mayo Clinic and worked with Leslie Groves, and he had the credentials to do an autopsy of an alien. And then I called up his daughter in Seattle and talked to her on the phone. And
What'd she say?
I said, well, do you think your father autopsied an alien? And she said, yeah, I wouldn't put it past him. Yeah.
Did she elaborate beyond that?
No, she didn't elaborate. She didn't say that he ever told her that she did it. He did it. But no hesitation in her voice. We talked a little bit about her father, and she sent me some documents and pictures and so forth. But you can get his military personnel file, and he was part of the medical corps, and a very relatively famous. I think there's a huge plaque about him in Minnesota. So he's a real stalwart, along with Detlef Bronk. I mean, these are, if in 1947 you wanted to do an autopsy of an alien, these are two people you'd tap, particularly because Leslie Groves, the head of the Manhattan Project, would have chosen these people in a super classified way to do that.
Yeah, that Leslie Groves guy had a lot of behind the scenes power. Jesse Michaels was in here talking about him a bit too, and he keeps coming up in a lot of conversations. But he's a mysterious guy in this history.
Yeah, and he's somebody that needs more research. For example, I don't have his FBI file, but you could certainly file for it, and you could get his military personnel file. Well, probably faster you can get the FBI file.
Why faster?
Because the National Personnel Records turns things around in 3 months to 6 months, where the latest request for this guy, Lay, no, he's not on this list, but I put in a request, and they had 3,900 pages at the National Archives, and their response was, well, if you want us to declassify all 3,900 pages, you got to get in line, and it'll be 6 years.
6 years.
6 years. And
I might be dead in 6 years.
Exactly. I might have moved, but if you reduce your request to 400 pages, we can get you in the queue faster. We'll give you a higher priority, and it'll be 39 months.
That's still over 3 years.
Exactly. So this is an example of how the cover-up works, is that the National Archives doesn't have the resources to even process all the people. I have a long list. I could give the National Archives 40, 50 names of people that need their files declassified, and they don't have enough lawyers or resources to go through it and declassify it all. So it's underfunded, and Congress passed that law recently. It was sort of stripped down, but it still requires the National Archives to publish on their website UFO, UAP stuff, as well as submit it to, I think, ATIP so they're doing some work, and it's difficult to get them to focus on what I want. I wrote him a letter. I wrote the archivist, head archivist, a letter saying, if you want help in pointing you in the right direction to find the truth in the National Archives, I can help you. And they never responded.
Yeah, I didn't think they would.
Yeah.
Not to that one.
Yeah. So anyway, that's So we're talking about the Majestic documents. So that's the Special Operations Manual, 1994, and then there's a variety of documents that come to Tim Cooper and some.
Who was Tim Cooper again?
Tim Cooper is an interesting fellow. So Tim Cooper's father, Harry B. Cooper, worked at Int Air Force Base in the National Photographic Interpretation Center, and he got a commendation from Curtis LeMay for his outstanding work in the USAF UFO program, which I have. It's in my book, Magic Eyes Only, an example of this commendation letter with the gold seal and everything.
Curtis LeMay, another strange dog back there.
Yeah, right. Who definitely was up to his eyeballs in control.
Yes.
So Harry B. Cooper did a lot of work printing lots of classified documents in a cage at Int Air Force Base, which is now, I think, Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado. And his son, Tim, was watching his father at the JFK assassination on TV. And his father basically burst into tears and said, "Oh my God, they did it." And this made a really lasting impression on Tim. And he learned more from his father about UFOs and started filing Freedom of Information Act requests for lots of various things at White Sands Proving Grounds. And he was very much, he was a private investigator. He was a detective by training.
Yeah.
And so he did a level of investigative journalism that I haven't done, but I've got a lot of his original research.
But his dad says, "Oh my God, they did it."
They did it.
And it's
yeah.
the connotation there. That
It
it
is
had
the
something to do with
connotation
UFOs?
and his emotional crying of his father is that the counterintelligence guys assassinated Kennedy. Now the question is, why did they assassinate?
Why?
And so there's lots of reasons. I mean,
He had a lot.
A lot of reasons, but you could add the he's going to tell the UFO secret, and there's also one of the Majestic documents called National Security Action Memorandum number 271 and 274, one FOIA released and one leaked. But basically, it says, like, I don't know, a week before he's assassinated, I want you. This is a memo to the head of NASA, James Webb, saying, I want you to share the knowns and the unknowns with the Russians. With the Russians. The unknowns being the UFOs. And basically, I think that may have been yet another reason.
They're like, all right, this guy's got to go.
This guy's got to go. Is he wants to open the kimono and share the secret sauce with the Russians. He just, he'd gone through the Bay of Pigs and, the whole nuke thing. And that was not a pleasant experience for Kennedy and all those back channels. And we need to stop this. And he decided to make a strategic decision to say, let's cooperate instead of fight.
Yes. Yeah, there was a private red line between Kennedy and Khrushchev where they had, I think, up to like 18 very full-blown conversations that weren't like reported to anyone at the time. And one of the other key, I guess, outcomes of those conversations were these discussions between the two of them about the dangers of nukes and about decreasing the supply of nukes and like disarming both. And so when you talk with a lot of these ex-Intel guys, especially the ones who have some Cubano in their background,
right? I
think usually because of that, and even more so than the Bay of Pigs, it seems to me at this point, that's why they'll still call him a traitor or whatever. I would disagree with that assertion for sure.
Yep.
But, there were just so many things in even just like the 6 to 9 months before he was killed, where he was on, say, the wrong side of the issue versus intelligence.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
head gets blown off.
Right. And James Jesus Angleton, which
Yeah.
is the head of counterintelligence,
The spookiest of them all.
Right, where a lot of the Majestic documents and these leaks to Tim Cooper occurred. This the source that kept giving Tim these various mail drops, as well as some direct mailings from other parties, was a gentleman by the name of a pseudonym called Cantwheel. And Cantwheel claimed to be part of the Interplanetary Phenomenon Unit, the IPU.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and the IPU has been freely admitted in multiple Freedom of Information Act requests to be a real unit, part of the Assistant Chief of Staff for Intelligence, Technical and Scientific Branch, Counterintelligence, Interplanetary Phenomena Unit. So this is chain down. And Cantwheel was, going to the crash retrievals at the LA air raid in 42,
yeah.
right, and at Roswell and maybe many other cases, and had a fairly large file of material sort of outside of the Army, the Air Force, and the other agencies. So he had a lot of information, and I think he was one of the people that was probably recruited to declassify material at Fort Meade because he had all these tickets and clearances. And he was sympathetic to young Tim, who he knew through his father. And when his FOIA requests came by, he decided to do some leaking. And that's how I think it happened for Tim. And over several years, he got a variety of mailbox drops. I have some of the original envelopes. Some were mailed to his post office box. Some were put inside his post box. Some were mailed from Sacramento. One of the most interesting ones, which is original documents. This is the Bowen Encyclopedia of Flying Saucers. So, sort of changing the subject a little bit, Vernon Bowen wrote this book about Encyclopedia of Flying Saucers, basically a history of flying saucers from 1960 backwards. And he went to the New York Public Library, did a lot of research. He was a copywriter. And he submitted this to the Air Force as being a duly good citizen. And it went in and never came back out except 39 years later from the Freedom of Information Act office at Fort Meade, Maryland, to Tim Cooper. And this original document, which I have here, it says the highest classification for this document is top secret magic, no foreign dissemination for U.S. eyes only, exempt for declassification or RADA, originating agency.
This is the original one.
This is the original paper. They came. I have other original pieces of paper. You'll never see that except out of my hands or out of my safe. But I'd love to do. We did forensic on ink and paper and pencil marks, but we can't get exemplars to compare against the inks when the top secret stamped. This red stamp that's here.
Yeah.
So to do forensics on that, you need to punch out a little hole and do
On that.
Well, no, on this.
Right.
This is the most file copies probably. We can do both, but you need to do liquid chromatography on the dots.
Liquid chromatography.
Liquid chromatography on the dots to do the forensic analysis, but you got to have something to compare with.
What is that? Liquid chromatography?
So you punch out a little hole, you put in some chemicals, and it goes out a gel, and it fingerprints.
Oh.
It fingerprints the ink. That's really the principle. So you can fingerprint the ink. So if you have another example, like you went to the National Archives, found another top secret manual or top secret document of this era that wasn't stamped top secret magic, something else, something prosaic, and you were able to take a little thing, a little dot out of it, and compare them. You send it off to a forensic laboratory to do it. And they write a report and say, yep, we compared the two inks. They're of the same batch or style. They were both Air Force inks. Then you have something you say, oh, I can prove in a court of law that this is really from this era. And so that's the forensics that you have to do to sort of prove things to the next level. But the National Archives will never let you take their original document and put a little hole in it.
Of course.
And take it out. So
How did you get this again?
this was mailed to Tim Cooper. This is 300 pages.
But did he give it to you?
Yeah, he gave it to my father.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.